Hey, what up? This is Zach Guilford from Midnight Mass, and you're listening to one of my favorite podcasts, Pop Culture Pastor.
Pop Culture Pastor.
Cody, life is a mystery. Everyone must stand alone.
Yes.
I hear you call my name, and it feels like home.
That it does.
Yeah.
It's really weird that a church choir saying that.
Okay. I am so glad you said that because I want to talk about social media. Okay?
Okay.
So here's the deal. You saw that on TikTok, didn't you?
No.
Where did you see it?
So I saw it on X that
Yeah.
they listed a specific church choir.
Mm-hmm. Well, they were wrong. Whoever it was, they probably got their information from TikTok. Currently, there's 1,500 reaction videos to that choir singing that song.
Uh-huh.
Did you know it was filmed in 2022 in Munich?
Sounds like the Germans I know.
Yeah. So there's a big social media thing making fun of, like, I don't know, evangelical right-wing churchgoers, basically. MAGAs. They call them MAGA people, red hats. And TikTok's going crazy over this video, saying, y'all don't even know what this song's about. And it would be weird if a church choir was singing Madonna's Like a Prayer.
I've seen the music video.
Yeah. All of this is news to Jens Junker, who conducted the performance back in 2022. It was a performance by a pop-up choir. And they're baffled by how it has been mocked by millions of social media users in the United States over the past week. More than 1,500 reaction videos have been uploaded to TikTok in a section entitled Red Hat Anthem, an apparent reference to the red caps worn by supporters of one president-to-be Donald Trump. Anyways, yeah, so this person says it's completely out of context, used as supposed evidence that the reactionary conservative right, they can say things about it. But basically, I don't even care about all that. I do want to talk about social media, just briefly with pop culture.
And I want to talk about how we just lost out on the whole old lady society known as the Red Hat Society.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They just got, like, misplaced and displaced.
Thrown under the MAGA bus,
Yes.
if you will.
Although I don't know what they ever did besides wear red hats. That's all I know.
Something or other. I don't know. Something red hats. Yeah. Okay. So I would have never realized this. Well, I would have realized it. I just didn't have the right context for it until I started helping a friend do a podcast on KU basketball. Kansas University Jayhawks college basketball. So what's with the frustration?
It ebbs and flows.
Oh, he's reacting to...
I'm a fan.
Yeah, he's a fan. I mean...
So, fan is short for fanatic, and there's overreactions abound after tough games and wins and losses.
Yeah.
There's been times I thought we were going to the national championship, and times I would have benched the whole team.
Yeah. So, here's the thing. The funny thing about this is it took that to realize what social media... It gave me a clear picture of what social media does to our culture. So for this podcast I do with a friend, our whole shtick, our whole gimmick is we react to bad social media takes by quote unquote fans. Okay. So we do this. And so I'm looking at these a lot, and a bunch of these, they call them burners. Are you aware of this? Like every team, every professional and college team has burners.
My dear friend Kevin Durant famously had a burner account that people quickly identified, maybe even like close to 10 years ago, honestly.
Yeah. So these accounts, they have thousands of followers, and the whole game of social media is you have to make, I call it, you make a conclusion instead of an observation. And that conclusion has to be one way, one extreme or the other, because that is how you get likes and followers. And social media has provoke that out of us, because a lot of us want to be influencers. And so for instance, when a new Star Wars movie comes out or a new Star Wars show, if you're a quote unquote Star Wars influencer, you will make an extreme claim, good or bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's somewhere in the middle. Like The Acolyte was fine. It was okay. It was a show. It was a show that existed. It was neither the most wokest thing ever produced, nor was it the greatest Star Wars entertainment ever produced.
I still feel that might be The Mandalorian, honestly.
I mean, you can make a case for it, sure. My son's really into the original trilogy right now, and so I've watched Empire Strikes a couple times in the last few days. That's a pretty good film.
Oh, yeah. The classic three are, I think they're in the upper echelon.
Yeah. And I recently rewatched The Last Jedi lately, and I'm just still here for that movie. I do not understand the absolute hatred for that movie. Well, I do understand it because, again, I think influencers had a hand in this.
Well, with that one, I also think Mark Hamill being openly against how Luke ends up has a huge hand in it. Because whatever he says is gospel with Star Wars.
I would also say Mark Hamill was playing the influencing game. Because if it wasn't for Star Wars, which had been a dormant franchise, at least as far as he was concerned, for a long time, and then he got huge again because of social media, essentially. Like, how many people follow Mark Hamill on the social medias?
Too many.
Yeah, like tons. And he hadn't really been pop culturally super relevant in a long time. He's amazing at voices. He voiced animated characters.
I was going to say, people love him as the Joker.
Yeah, no disrespect to Mark Hamill, but he had a lot of political takes, and of course they were extreme takes. And just like when he made his case on social media about the character of Luke after the movie came out, by the way, when it was mixed reviews. And again, I would say Mark Hamill fell into that trap of like the influencer trap of, I have to have an extreme take about this. And then here's the problem. The problem isn't I have to have an extreme take about this. They're just playing the game. The problem is everybody believes it. So think about all of the hot button issues in our country, the hot button like events, January 6th. How many people believe that things like that are somewhere in the middle of what they hear? Not many. It's either nothing or a lot of something.
Potentially. I know a growing number of people that just really are disenfranchised and disenchanted with it all, and so they have completely unplugged.
Yeah.
And that's a growing trend.
That's the third group. And I think with pop culture, you're getting there, especially with like Star Wars fandom. I think DC's dangerously close with, like the whole Zack Snyder fans. Like some of those Zack Snyder fans were like awful. And those influencers.
A little harsh.
It was bad. And so like, I think a lot, by the way, James Gunn, as we record this, the Superman trailer is going to come out tomorrow, the first teaser.
I already got it bookmarked.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to that. And I hope it's good. I really hope it's good because I want the comic book stuff, the IP I like, to be good. I don't want to not like it. But I think influencers and social media have tricked us into really not liking Star Wars. Like, I think there's a lot of people who love Star Wars growing up who've kind of been tricked into really hating it. Which is too bad because, like, for instance, like I keep using The Acolyte as an example. I watched The Acolyte, at least the first 5 or 6 episodes, and it just was neither of the things it was really being presented as.
There's been questionable decisions, but with social media, I do think it's very easy to push an agenda where on a scale of 1 to 10, this might be like a 3 or a 4, but we're going to rev it up to an 8 based off of this snowballing effect that social media has.
Yeah, by the way, we started off with people painting this choir as a Christian choir in a bad light. Like they were trying to say Christians are dumb or something like that. I don't want to let them off the hook either, because if you go on TikTok, there's tons of these Christian influencers. Like, someone sent me a video of one doing, like, they spent 8 minutes railing on the movie Wicked. And I watched 2 minutes of it, and I was like, this person's clearly never seen the movie. Like, they were getting all sorts of details wrong. They were saying things that weren't in there that were. It's just gotten to, especially TikTok is bad. They omit pieces of information. It seems very intentional on TikTok, where I'm going to present the most extreme version of this I can so I can scare people.
Clickbait.
And so I can get, clickbait. So I can get likes and follows. But the problem is people believe that. And then I get them sending me the videos.
It is what the kids like to call the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Oh, what's that?
It's where you get a little bit of information, and then you proceed to act like you are an authoritarian figure on the subject matter that you have, like, an extreme knowledge base, when or in fact you have a very little knowledge.
But what is it when I actually know? Like me. When I know the things.
That's just called being right, my friend.
Okay. And I just thought it was interesting. I came across this article about how people were going crazy. I had not seen any of these videos. I haven't really had time. I haven't been on social media a lot in the last week. So I just came across this article about the whole Like a Prayer choir thing.
I blame Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, if someone was, like, honestly, if a church choir had been singing that, it's not like I would have been shocked. I wouldn't have been shocked. I mean, listen.
It was within the realm of possibilities.
There were when I did get on social media this week, I saw, Rex, what's his name?
Chapman.
On Blue Sky, sharing a video of some mega church in Texas that had, like, flames and trampolines going on and Santa Claus. And he said tax churches. And I immediately closed the app because I was so annoyed, because this happens. You hope it doesn't happen from an influencer with thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers, because I don't even have the energy to explain to them, like, that represents 0.01% of churches.
And churches make up some significant social work. So
yeah, there's a lot of important things that churches do.
And the government will tell you, oh, we got so much red tape that we can't do those things. Yeah. So I would like to have quick access to things that help people meet their needs.
If my church brought in a bunch of dudes on trampolines with flames shooting out and tanks on stage, I wouldn't go to that church anymore.
Yep.
I'd be highly disappointed that they would have ever thought of doing that. Anyways, that is neither here nor there. It just was a social media thing that intermingled with pop culture, and I thought it was interesting.
What's this podcast?
The podcast, which podcast?
This one.
This one what?
Have we introduced ourselves?
Oh, this is Pop Culture Pastor.
Yes.
Yeah, messed that one up. It's okay. I was really into this subject, obviously.
I could tell.
This is Pop Culture Pastor. My name's Dave. Cody's here.
I am.
The box office this past weekend, Cody, Moana 2 remains on top with Wicked close behind. It's really interesting. They're both pretty near each other in total gross as well, even though Moana 2's been out one less weekend.
Kids movie.
Yeah. But I will say Moana 2 is behind Wicked by about the same amount that Wicked just made in its fourth week out. So it looks to be they're about doing the same amount of business. Kraven the Hunter, $11 million gross.
It's Kraven time.
Yeah, it's not actually, as it turns out. And Sony has already kind of announced that this is it. They're done.
Bring the gang back together.
I mean,
what's the worst that can happen?
Why would a movie company say something like that while the movie is in theaters in its opening weekend? Why would they say, well, this is the end of the line for that particular version of the Sony Spider-Verse?
Maybe they were hoping that they would get a pity party of people coming in being like, we must save the Sony Spider-Man, non-Spider-Man universe.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim made $4.5 million, Cody. That is atrocious.
Well, so I finally saw the first advertisement for it like Sunday.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing advertisement wise that came across social media, came across TV, came across friends talking about, like, someone mentioned it at the beginning of the calendar year, and then I never heard a single thing about it again. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, it wasn't. I saw one trailer for it and I wasn't blown away. It's the lowest rated LOTR film ever on Rotten Tomatoes. Production budget was only $30 million. So they didn't spend a lot of money on it. But here's the big problem, Cody. You sent me this.
Oh.
It was a tweet or a post on X from Culture Crave. WB has admitted it was fast-tracked to retain the film rights for Tolkien's novels.
Well, smart move by them, I guess.
IP is just a problem, isn't it?
Well, having contractual obligations with the IP, I think, is definitely a hindrance. Like, if you have the rights, I think you should, like, do something with it. It can't just sit on a shelf for a million years. So, like, be doing stuff with it.
I mean, but put the right amount of work into it, too.
Oh,
though.
yeah.
Like, I guess
this could have been made 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it gets close to a time when you're going to lose the rights to it. They'll, I don't know if they revert back to the Tolkien family or whoever has the rights to it.
They could come to me. I will take all the Tolkien properties.
But it's a lot of that is what Sony is doing too. You don't even realize it because
they're not advertising it.
Yeah, how often they have to come out with some Spider-Man, something that uses those Spider-Man characters. There was a Fantastic Four movie, Roger Corman's Fantastic Four, back in the early 90s.
I blocked it out.
That movie was solely made so they could just retain the rights to it. To keep owning the rights. It would have reverted back to Marvel, which, we would have got Fantastic Four movies a lot sooner.
I've seen them too many times. I'm over it.
You don't think the Fantastic Four movie can be good? You think it's just the characters just don't translate to screen?
I don't know if they translate to screen well. If Pedro and crew can't knock it out the ballpark, no one can, and just bury that franchise.
I have no
to
faith.
Animated.
I'm sorry, I have no faith in Pedro Reed. It just doesn't work for me.
Well, then bury this franchise to animated shows and movies.
I love Pedro Pascal. I just cannot see him as Reed Richards.
I've seen it, and I'm ready.
Okay. Well, I'll withhold my condemnation until they actually make it. Are you getting nervous about the Superman movie at all?
No, not at all.
There's been some social media rumblings that say that, like, everything's riding on this. If this movie misses, and it's like sandwiched on the calendar in between Fantastic Four and another big one. I can't remember what it was now. But if this misses, there's some rumblings that it's all a non-starter, that they'll scrap the Gunverse.
They would be fools.
I think so too. That's the problem, but that's WB's problem all along, is they're not patient.
Clearly.
Let's get to some more news. This is going to be amazing news for Cody. A Murder, She Wrote movie.
Yeah! You want my mom on the podcast, you make this movie.
Variety has confirmed that Jamie Lee Curtis may be headed to star as Jessica Fletcher in a movie version of Murder, She Wrote.
JB, as the kids call her, because it's Jessica Beatrice Fletcher.
Oh, okay. Well, I actually think that this is something that could be really cool, especially if they do it again. The reboots, the remake/reboot things, Cobra Kai, all these, you take these older properties, they're kind of hit and miss, but when they hit, there's a certain quality to them where there's an irreverence with the source material while also honoring it in a way. Because Cobra Kai is a joke, right?
Yes.
They essentially, like, Karate Kid is so serious. It's more serious than dental work, right? Like, that is played straight up serious. And then Cobra Kai is kind of a joke. They're having fun with it, but also serious.
Yeah. With this, I think it might work good in a movie format, just because the big problem I always had with the show was wherever J.B. Fletcher goes, there's always a murder. And it's like,
maybe it was her. I mean,
have we ever looked at the common denominator here? But if it's just like a one-off murder, and then like we do a sequel, maybe kind of like the Agatha Christie movies.
yeah. The Murder, She Wrote ran for 12 seasons.
Yes, it did.
12 seasons, what, 20-ish episodes each season? I mean,
that sounds about
everywhere
right.
she goes, there's a murder.
And so many happening in Cabot Cove, Maine.
Also, this week, the Library of Congress, as they do, announced the films that they were selecting this year to join the National Film Registry.
This is a joke.
So every year, the public submits nominations to be considered, and over 6,700 submissions were made this year. And the Library of Congress chooses movies based on, quote, their cultural, historic, or aesthetic importance to preserve the nation's film heritage. So one of the movies, and I know this is the one you're shaking your head about, is 2001's Spy Kids. And I'm just like, but why? I mean, what?
Like, it has none of the above qualities that we were trying to preserve.
Let me tell you some of the other movies, the older movies that were also, put in the Library of Congress this year. Pride of the Yankees from 1942. 1974's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is like iconic.
Oh, very much so in the horror film genre.
Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke
Classic.
from 1978. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Khan! Dirty Dancing from 1987.
Patrick Swayze.
Yeah, Beverly Hills Cop from 1984. I mean, these are iconic films.
My Personal Idaho, which is like an indie darling.
And then you get down to 2001 and you got Spy Kids, and I'm super confused.
I'm not even sure if that's the best Spy Kids movie, honestly.
I wouldn't be either, because I haven't seen any of them. I mean, I've seen pieces of Spy Kids, but it's a kids movie.
It is.
And I didn't have kids when it came out, and so it would be on my TV, and I would quickly change it because I'm not watching Spy Kids. Also, it looked like trash.
It wasn't great cinema by any stretch of the imagination.
Only 2 movies newer than Spy Kids got adopted in, and that was No Country for Old Men.
Love that movie.
Which came out in 2007, and The Social Network, which came out in 2010.
That's a movie I never have watched.
You've never seen The Social Network?
I have seen like 2 scenes from it.
That's one I like. It's a very good movie, and everybody should watch it just to see, every time, what's his name from Facebook? Zuckerberg tries to like overhaul his image. Everyone should have to go back and watch The Social Network and be like, just a reminder, this is the dude. This is him.
This is Mark.
Everybody gets a chance to grow and mature. We're not holding him hostage to what he was in college, but just remember, this started off when he's saying how important Facebook is, blah, 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 in front of the, congressional committee. Just remember, it started off as a way to rate girls in their outward beauty.
Didn't age well.
Not a good look. But, to be fair, he was young. He was in college. We're not holding him hostage to the crimes of a 20-year-old, Not crimes, but you know what I mean. The base behaviors.
His prefrontal lobe wasn't fully developed.
Anyways, that movie was pretty good, Social Network. And it really shows like a lot of the cutthroat type stuff that the early years of Facebook kind of had going on. It's good. Even Jay Timberlake was good in it too. Andrew Garfield. That was like when he made his first big splash.
My dear friend Jesse's in it.
Jesse?
Eisenberg?
Oh, yeah. He plays Zuckerberg.
I was going to say, like, I thought he was the star of the movie.
Yeah, no. Actually, I think that might be his best role ever. It certainly was not Lex Luthor.
Ouch to Zombieland.
Oh, he's very entertaining in Zombieland, but he's kind of playing Jesse Eisenberg as Jesse Eisenberg. He's got like what you imagine is his kind of default personality going
Now
on there.
You See Me?
Yeah, exactly. Jesse Eisenberg playing Jesse Eisenberg.
I love Jesse Eisenberg as Jesse Eisenberg.
I do too. He seems like a real fun dude.
The Squid and the Whale, he was great in, but that was more Laura Linney, I feel, carrying that, and Jeff Daniels.
But I think he gives a very nuanced performance as Zuckerberg in The Social Network. I think it's really good.
The Zucks.
Because you don't hate the guy, even though, like I said, he's doing some things you're not real down with. You don't hate him. You get his motivations, and he makes him appear human, which is always good.
He is human.
Yeah. All right. That is all we have for the news segment. A little longer news segment today. Now we're going to go get ready for our Be Kind Rewind. We watched It's a Wonderful Life, and we're going to talk about it coming up next.
This is Pop Culture Pastor.
Now, Cody, well, you want that moon up there? I could take a lasso and pull it down for you.
I love Jimmy Stewart.
Isn't he just the best?
He is. If you ever want a good cry, I encourage you to watch his clip with the late night show host, Johnny
Carson?
Yes.
Explain it to me. What does he say?
So it is him doing this poem he wrote about a dog named Spot. And oh my goodness, tearjerker, because his dog had just passed away.
Oh, man.
I wasn't ready for it.
If you were listening to this pod and you were unaware of who James or Jimmy Stewart is.
Us that are close, it's Jimmy.
Yeah. He is like America's favorite actor. He's like Tom Hanks before Tom Hanks.
That's a good comp, I would say.
Yeah, especially Tom Hanks, like 15 years ago.
Yes.
Because, as time has gone on, it's not like we don't like Tom Hanks. He's just not the sweetheart he was. Like, where he just was kind of like America's favorite actor.
Chet Hanks happened, and we became more obsessed with Chet.
Chet ruined it. But yeah, so James Stewart, for a lot of reasons, just was kind of this big actor. I remember the first thing I ever saw him in, we watched Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
That's a classic.
Yeah, where he has like the filibuster, the all night filibuster, and he's like about to pass out up at the dais.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great. That's a great movie. I have something to admit about It's a Wonderful Life for this Be Kind Rewind, and I think I may have said this before, but I had never watched it from beginning to end in one sitting. I've never sat down and just watched this movie.
So I had, but this go round, I chose to watch it in color. They have a color version.
Oh, you watched the colorized version?
Yes, I did. I'm like, give me a colorized Jimmy Stewart. Maybe that will improve my viewing of this.
That's super weird.
It was. So I'm actually am a huge Jimmy Stewart fan. And I quite literally made a list of like the Jimmy Stewart movies that I love him in. Mm-hmm. And I love Christmas movies. So this should be a match made in heaven. But it doesn't make my top 6.
Oh, wow.
It's number 7.
Are you going to make me wait for this list? Or
I'll do the list now.
Yeah. First of all,
it's in no particular order.
Can I ask you a question first?
Yes.
How was my impersonation?
It was better than most.
Hold on. I was walking down the street and I saw this rabbit. And his name was Harvey. Am I close?
At the beginning, you were. You kind of lost your way towards the end.
Okay, give me your favorite Jimmy Stewart movies.
Okay, so the Glenn Miller story. That one's a great one. Spirit of St. Louis. My favorite.
Is he Lindbergh in that?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I've never seen that one.
One of my favorite Hitchcock movies, Vertigo.
Mm-hmm.
Love Vertigo.
Yeah.
Rear Window.
He's great in those two, yeah.
Harvey might be my absolute favorite Jimmy Stewart movie, and then Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
What is it with you and imaginary bunnies? You like Darko, too.
I love Donnie Darko. I did, this is a true story. I did we did a vacation Bible school thing for adults, but we did it with films at my very first church I was at. And so I did kind of a deep theological dive on some of the themes in Harvey.
That's amazing.
Yes. I was pop culture pastoring way back.
He was. Way before I was even a Christian.
It would have been about 2012.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been around that time. I was definitely before I was a pastor.
So, yes, that's a true story.
Amazing stuff.
And then this movie probably is number 7.
Okay. All right. Well, so this is the focus of today's Be Kind Rewind because it is the Christmas season.
It is.
We're revisiting a holiday classic that's warmed hearts for generations. I mean, this is the one. Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life.
It does get brought up quite a bit in the lexicon of Christmas movies.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like meta. So like there's the scene in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation where all the grandparents are they're all asleep on the chairs and this movie's on in the background.
Yep.
And then there's the joke in the Christmas Vacation with the fix the newel post, which is clearly a reference to this movie because he's constantly pulling off the newel post on his staircase.
I didn't even know that's what it was called until like
Christmas Vacation.
Rewatching Christmas Vacation as an adult.
But this is a 1946 gem starring James Stewart as George Bailey, the everyman hero who discovers just how meaningful his life really is. This has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. So people love it, which is interesting because, as we're going to discuss, this movie does not open when it comes out. People aren't super fond of it right away. Directed, of course, by Frank Capra. We already told you that. It makes $3.3 million at the box office.
That sounds like a lot.
But it lost $500,000. Did you know that? They
didn't have DVD sales back then.
Yeah. Here's the blurb. George Bailey has so many problems he's thinking about ending it all. And it's Christmas. As the angels discuss George, we see his life in flashback. As George is about to jump from a bridge, he ends up rescuing his guardian angel Clarence, who then shows George what his town would have looked like if he hadn't been for all his good deeds over the years. That's really about it, too.
Yeah.
This is the part where we do the broad take. Let me just take you through the movie here. The movie begins. My kids were so confused at the beginning of this movie, where we got like talking galaxies.
I was going to say, why do we have these talking celestial bodies known as galaxies?
I mean, for the 1940s, this is cutting edge.
It was. And in color, I was like, this isn't bad.
I keep forgetting you watched it in color. The movie begins with a flurry. You hear like these flurry of prayers reaching the heavens for George Bailey, a kind-hearted man, the small town of Bedford Falls. Clarence comes along in the form of another talking galaxy.
He looks more like a star.
Yeah, he's not as big.
Yeah. He hasn't got his wings yet.
That's right. He's a second-class angel, and he's trying to earn his wings. And he's sent to help George in his darkest hour. But first, Clarence is going to get a crash course in George's life. So we see George grow up, and he's one of these guys that's got big dreams of exploring the world. He's like, this is, even for that long ago, this is so American. This is an American story, right?
Very much so.
Small town kid. It's like a John Mellencamp song. He wants to explore the world. He wants to get out of his small town. He wants to achieve great things. But time and time again, life throws obstacles in his path. After his father dies, George takes over the family business, the Bailey Brothers Building and Loan, to keep it out of the clutches of the greedy, villainous Mr. Potter. You want to say something about Mr. Potter, or you just want to make a noise? His plans for travel and college put on hold. He falls in love with Mary, played by Donna Reed, and starts a family. Despite his sacrifices, George becomes a pillar of the community. He helps his neighbors achieve their dreams of home ownership, and he works tirelessly to keep Bedford Falls a thriving, decent place to live. But life isn't without hardships. Everything comes crashing down on Christmas Eve when George's uncle misplaces $8,000. I wanted to smack George's uncle.
I'm like, how do you do this? Like, I know where the money ends up, but still, like, how in the world do you not have a hold of that at, like, all times? That's buku bucks still.
I know. And he's like, all in the name of talking trash. He's talking trash to Mr. Potter, and he accidentally hands it to him in a newspaper. He had it wrapped up. And he was gloating because the younger Bailey brother had gotten the Congressional Medal of Honor. And so, yeah, he loses that money. It threatens the survival of the building loan. They're facing financial ruin and maybe possibly some jail time. And George starts contemplating self-deletion.
Well, he has a life insurance policy.
Right.
Worth more than what he owes.
That's when Clarence steps in. Who I love Clarence the Angel's strategy, which is before George can throw himself into the river from the bridge, he throws himself in, and George, being George Bailey, jumps in to rescue him. So he does it to help George understands his worth, and George, who is kind of this refrain of like, I wish I'd have never been born, is what he says.
Jimmy, why are you being a jabroni?
Clarence grants his wish to see what life would have been like if he'd never been born. Without George, Bedford Falls isn't Bedford Falls. It's a dark and cold place called Pottersville, or the New Vegas from the Stand remake.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. They laid it on pretty thick in this one, didn't they?
They did.
Like, there was no businesses. They were all bars.
So it was at this point that I'm like, this seems like a heavily politicized movie.
Yes, and we'll get to that. His friends and family are suffering. The countless lives he touched are forever changed. And realizing his impact, George begs Clarence to let him live again, proclaiming, I want to live, Clarence, I want to live. And it's, of course, a heartwarming finale because it's Christmas. George returns to his life, overjoyed to find everything just as he left it. The townsfolk rally around him, raising the money to save the building and loan. In the final scene, George holds his family close as the town sings Auld Lang Syne.
And you hear the bells.
And Clarence gets his wings, right? That's the big quote. Every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
I have so much beef with it.
That may not be theologically correct, but we'll get there. Yeah. And so it's a very sweet movie. It's very sweet. So let's just,
I don't know if it's one that can get remade.
Oh, they've tried.
I know you can try. I don't know you can successfully remake it without like completely changing significant details.
They had to change it. It's not a straight one-for-one remake. But The Family Man, directed actually by Brett Ratner, which is incredible. It's actually, I like it. I think it's pretty good. They just kind of, there's some subtle differences. So he's in his other life first, and then gets a glimpse of what life could have been like where he wasn't rich and achieving. You know, like they just play around with the formula a little bit, but it's essentially the same story. It's the same kind of story. Wonderful Life, It's a Wonderful Life received mixed reviews on its release.
I'm with you.
Underperformed at the box office. Recorded a loss of $500,000.
You can't get my friend Jimmy Stewart for nothing. You got to pay him.
Yeah, but over time, however, it has become a beloved holiday classic, celebrated for its uplifting message and, of course, Jimmy Stewart's compelling performance. Cody, first things first. It's time to Muppetize this movie. Let's Muppetize It's a Wonderful Life. Who you keeping?
Well, I'm going to keep James.
You're keeping Jimmy Stewart.
Yes.
I figured you would say that. That's why I went a different direction. Who are your Muppets?
Like, honestly, since I feel like I don't use Kermit enough when we do this, Kermit becomes Clarence.
Okay, I could see that.
I want Gonzo to be the brother.
Gonzo, Congressional Medal of Honor winner.
Yes. And then Fozzie Bear can be the uncle.
Oh, poor Fozzie. Okay, that does make sense. But I went a different direction. I'm keeping Henry Travers as Clarence. So I'm keeping the human angel guy. And I'm taking Fozzie as George Bailey. Because Kermit, we always make Kermit the star.
Yeah, we do.
But I feel like Fozzie has got like this sentimentality that would work well as George. So I'm taking Fozzie as George. And then I thought, you know what? I want some Sesame Street Muppets. So Elmo is playing Zuzu. Mostly because I want Elmo to start playing around. The rose petals. The rose petals. Also, I'm going to have Oscar the Grouch as Mr. Potter.
That fits.
For one scene alone. Because I want Oscar to still be in his garbage can and him to tell that guy to roll him forward. Roll me forward. And he's like in a suit, but still in his garbage can. I just think that would be hilarious. So that's the Muppetizing of the movie I'm going with. I'm keeping Fozzie. I think it could have been Fozzie's big break.
It could have been.
All right. What in this movie holds up for you, Cody?
Well, Jimmy Stewart.
Oh, man, he's so good, isn't he?
Although I was rewatching this and my wife came home from work and she's like, his voice is annoying. And I'm like, you shut your mouth.
Yeah, right. That is America's beloved actor.
But no, I love Jimmy Stewart in this.
You should go home and start talking to your wife like Jimmy Stewart. Oh, hey, honey, you want that moon there? I'll lasso it for you.
She would not appreciate that. So he gives some heartfelt moments. He comes across as a jerk face when he needs to be a jerk face. And he adds some elements to the script that I think help the script tremendously, because I do have beef with that, but I'll talk about that later.
Okay, yeah. I also had Jimmy Stewart, of course. He holds up after he served as a bomber pilot during World War II. And so he returned to Hollywood and he had apprehensions about resuming his acting career. In fact, he had a lot of self-doubt when he came back. This was his first role back. It was his first film after 5 years off to fight in a stinking war. This is when men were men, Cody.
It was. And at some point around this time, he's also like trying to find evidence of Bigfoot.
Is he really?
Yes. Like he purchases a bone that's supposed to be like from a Bigfoot hand.
When men were men.
Yes. Going to the Himalayas and getting a Bigfoot bone and bringing it back to the United States.
So he had a lot of self-doubt that actually it affected his relationship with his on-screen romantic interest, which I'll get to in a minute. But Frank Capra called the role of George Bailey a good Samaritan who doesn't know he's the good Samaritan, which I thought was very interesting. Obviously, there's religious imagery all over this, and it's not exactly hidden, although they did cut some scenes. at one point when he's really down on his luck, he hits his knees and does the Lord's Prayer, but Frank cut that scene because he didn't want it to be over the top religious, which compared to today's entertainment, it's over the top.
I was like, oh, Frank, how times have changed.
Yes, right. But so it's a Good Samaritan who doesn't know he's a Good Samaritan, and he famously says that only Jimmy Stewart could have played this part.
I have a backup option that I think could have done it. Might not have been as well, but it still would have been good. And I will go with the poor man's Cary Grant and go with my dear friend Atticus Finch himself, Gregory Peck.
He's like struggling to come up with
No,
a name.
Gregory was there, Peck wasn't, and I'm like,
Your dear friend who probably died before you were born.
No,
Nah.
Gregory was still with us.
Is he still alive?
No, he's
Okay.
long gone now. But we share a birthday.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. So Jimmy Stewart clearly holds up. What else holds up?
So I think it actually does a good depiction of what small town or outskirts life kind of looks like, especially in the 30s into the 40s.
Yeah.
Because when everyone, their mom's trying to pull their money out of the bank or out of the loan and building, like, I was like, oh, this is weird.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen these days. And
Yeah.
like, evidently in the 80s it did happen.
Mm-hmm.
But like since 1980s, like, I haven't seen anything like that.
So my family and I were we used to take these Christmas vacations before COVID, and we finally went on one again. We've been gone the last few days. We watched this movie last night at the place we were staying. I had to actually pause that scene to explain to them what was going on, because they were totally confused. Like, what's going on? Why are they trying to get their money out of the bank? You know?
Everyone at once.
Yeah. It's like, well, this is okay. So the stock market crashed, and they weren't going to be able to cover people's money that they had in the bank, and it was bad. It was just really bad.
They didn't have the FDIC thing.
Yeah. So, I have Bedford Falls written on my list too. Now, Frank Capra, the film's director, visited Seneca Falls, New York in 1945 to find inspiration, and a lot of people think he found it in Seneca Falls, New York. There's another town like Westchester, New York.
That sounds right.
I think that he also drew some inspiration from, but Seneca Falls shares some similarities with Bedford Falls in the movie. They're both mill towns, Victorian architecture, and a significant Italian population, which does come out in the movie.
Thank you, Martini.
Seneca Falls even hosts an annual It's a Wonderful Life festival every December, which, okay, I think I have a new Christmas vacation destination.
It's happening.
We need to go to that.
I don't think you could just fly directly there.
Probably not. But yeah, I think it was Bedford Falls. It was the small town, old school America. It was really cool. I have the pool scene under the high school gym floor, which, by the way, is one of the few remaining set pieces that's actually still there. So most of the stuff's filled on. Obviously, they built this huge town on a set, a backlot. But this was actually filmed at Beverly Hills High School.
Yes.
And this still works to this day. That floor, the gym floor above the pool thing.
This gym has been used in other movies.
I thought I'd seen it before in other things too. I just couldn't recall what it was. But yeah, I have that written down here because there's a certain the kid who is the guy doing the floor shenanigans.
You jerk face.
He likes the girl that likes Jimmy.
Yes.
George.
He will be Jimmy throughout this whole podcast.
And I was like, who is that guy? I know that guy. Well, it turns out the actor who plays him is named Carl Switzer, who played Alfalfa in the
Little Rascals.
Little Rascals, original Little Rascals. And he was Freckleface Haynes, the dog-faced boy in White Christmas, another Christmas classic of which he's not really in. You see him in a picture. He's the Haynes sisters' brother who knows the army guys.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he's Freckleface Haynes, the dog-faced boy, which is where I remembered it from. I was like, it's Freckleface Haynes! And so, yeah, I have that written down here. Did you have anything else on what's good?
I will, I guess, lift up the wife.
Yeah.
She was captivating in her scenes.
Donna Reed.
Yes, Donna Reed should definitely get her flowers because, like, when he and her are, before they officially start dating, she's like doing everything and he's just being, I was out for a walk. That's all I was doing was just a walk. And it was a cranky Gus.
He's doing that guy thing.
And I'm like, you're not too cool for Donna Reed.
I have here written in my notes, I love the dynamic between Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed. I couldn't help but smile when they're interacting together on screen. Mm-hmm. There's just something about them together. And I was like, man, this is movie magic.
And then Jimmy breaks her heart.
Are you ready to be sad, though?
I am.
While James Stewart and Donna Reed's on-screen portrayal of the Baileys exuded warmth and affection, their off-screen relationship was marked by professional tensions and misunderstandings. Apparently, when the movie bombed, Jimmy may have blamed Donna, who was at that point an unknown, as a lead in the movie. She was a lead, the female lead, and she was an unknown, and he may or may not have said in an interview and kind of blamed it on her.
Oh, James, what are you doing?
But both actors came to value the enduring legacy of It's a Wonderful Life over time and respected each other's place in it. They made up.
Well, that's good.
But for a while, they didn't talk.
So it's interesting. I like the behind the scenes stories of movies, especially older ones. So there's a Gregory Peck, Audrey Hepburn movie, Roman Holiday, and it's like Audrey Hepburn's like breakout role. Mm-hmm. And there's a scene where like he sticks his hand into like this gargoyle mouth, and he then acts like he can't get it out, and he is freaking out, and then she starts freaking out, and he ad-libs that. And she, like, quite literally thought that his hand was getting eaten by this gargoyle thing, and then he pulls it out, and she just, like, freaks out and, like, starts to laugh and cry at the same time. And that was a genuine reaction, and they just had a great time on that set.
Audrey, not the brightest bulb.
She was young, like, really young in that movie.
I know, I'm just kidding. Not trying to slander an American legend.
Yes.
What doesn't hold up, Cody?
Clarence. Oh, get Clarence out of here.
Clarence is kind of a bumbler, isn't he?
He's a bumbler.
He lucks into everything in this. Like, he doesn't actually do anything, does he?
No. And he makes me so mad. Okay, so Clarence is an angel, and an angel in waiting to get his wings. And it's not about helping George at all. It's not. It is clearly about just getting his wings. And for like him, like when he's talking to the galaxies, like I'm like, you guys are going to give him his wings, even though he's just saying, I want to get my wings, and the only reason I'm doing this is to get my wings? Like, this is bad motivation. And then he tells George, I'm really just here to get my wings. That's all I'm here for, and you're going to help me.
Yeah, you don't tell the Mark that.
Yeah. So
also, I imagine angels call us Marks.
Yeah, I had beef with Clarence. And especially since they're like, well, he scored so high on his test. And I'm like, this guy.
I loved it, by the way, when George called him Gabriel.
Yes.
I was like, that's some good biblical humor right there.
And I was down with that.
We mentioned earlier that some parts of this movie didn't sit well with certain ideologies of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So on May 26th, 1947, the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, issued a memo about a movie stating, quote, with regard to the picture It's a Wonderful Life, redacted, stated in substance that the film represented rather obvious attempts to discredit bankers by casting Lionel Barrymore as a, quote, Scrooge type so that he would be the most hated man in the picture. This, according to these sources, is a common trick used by communists.
Yeah! You call him out.
In addition, Redacted stated that, in his opinion, this picture deliberately maligned the upper class, attempting to show the people who had money were mean and despicable characters. Film historian Andrew Saris observed as curious that the censors never noticed that the villainous Mr. Potter gets away with robbery without being caught or punished in any way.
He does. But, like, so clearly he's trying to have a monopoly over the whole town.
Yes.
And, like, again, when it becomes George is non-existent, I'm like, oh, this is kind of heavy on, like, yeah, rich, well-off people that are trying to keep being well-off are the worst of the worst.
Yeah, like, this movie comes out today, nobody bats an eye. This is like Antifa's favorite movie, right?
Yeah. Down with the man.
Because, yeah, the banker, the rich guy, is clearly the villain.
And so, like, the Red Scare is, like, in its early stages.
It's wild that the FBI put out a statement.
I love that.
It's so amazing. It's just so amazing. It's like, on one hand, times are so different, but the more things change, the more they stay the same. Like, political things were just as big back then. And it's wild, though, that you can see the clear motivation of why you would call that, oh, they're trying to make rich people look bad. It's like, why? Because you're rich and you don't.
Exactly.
Like, what? I mean, if they don't make him, I mean, he is kind of villainous in the movie.
So I feel they kind of make him over the top on, like, his demeanor. Like, there's never a moment where it's like, oh, I'm sincere.
Also, it's hard not to draw the connection to Donald Trump, who is going to be the next president.
Oh, yes.
Because he's like that guy. It's all about the business. It's all about making moves. And if people, get caught in that, then that's on them. It's not on me. I'm making moves. I'm making business.
That they are.
And so it was like, oh, man, this is wild. This is just wild. But yeah, do you have anything else that does?
Yes, I definitely do.
I felt that didn't hold up real well because I'm just like, this is such a sweet movie, and I wish this wasn't taking place around it. But it does show you that things really don't change a whole lot.
The commies had infiltrated Christmas.
We're keeping the capitalism in Christmas, baby.
Yes. So I had issue with the script. In particular, so some people would say, like, you see George as human towards the end of the movie when, like, he's going to be arrested and he then goes off on a bender and wrecks his car and all that jazz.
Yeah,
But
there was an audible gasp in the room for my kids when you see him driving out of there.
you can't drink and drive, Jimmy. And they showed why. You'll wreck into a prized old tree.
Luckily, top speed for the Model T or whatever he was driving was like 20 miles per hour.
But so throughout the movie, I felt like he really isn't he has moments of being super nice, but he definitely has flaws, and they shine through.
Yeah, he's human.
And early on, and even when he, like, reads the telegram, I'm like, you shouldn't be snooping, kid. Don't snoop.
Hey, if he doesn't,
someone
someone dies, man.
But yes, don't snoop. Like we're promoting the wrong things here. But no, he's portrayed being very human, very flawed. He doesn't want anything to do with his wife to be like, he treats her rude, and I'm like, come on. And he's also very self-centered at times, like, I'm going to travel the world. Forget you guys. This town can kick rocks and eat my dust.
It is hilarious that he's like supposed to be what, like 19, 20 years old, and like he's got women throwing themselves at him, and he's like completely oblivious.
Yes.
Also, it's also hilarious that they're trying to pass him off as 20, but hey, it was the 40s. They didn't have the special effects they do today.
I was like, man, we have aged differently, Jimmy. But then if you look at that and you're like, okay, well, they're at least making him human. He's not going to be a super, super good guy. But then you get the Mr. Potter, who is nothing but the worst human being out there.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's like, okay, like, give him some human moments of being nice.
Yeah, I feel like if you make this movie today, you make that a little bit more subtle, right?
Like, it is heavy-handed. And
especially in a movie that has something to say about, like, the American dream.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he could just be a dude that's caught up in that.
Yes.
Because essentially, Potter is where George Bailey wants to be at the beginning of the movie. That's who he wants to be. Jet setter.
Yep. He has a Nat Geo magazine, and he's ready to go.
Yeah.
But yes, I don't think the script overly holds or is that good. I think that the actors in it do a good job of kind of covering up some of it. But like throughout, I'm like, Jimmy, I don't know why she stays with you.
Are there movies from those early eras, though, that you think the script is complex and really good?
Yes.
Do you have examples?
Citizen Kane.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that is the go-to film for like 60 years. And then finally we are like, okay, it's not the best film of all time. It's in the top 5.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there are some complex scripts. And I think even some of Hitchcock's early works have some complicated scripts to them. Now, there are things within this movie that I think don't hold up to the test of time, like how maybe women are treated or presented in this.
Yeah.
Him drinking and driving and no one batting an eye.
I mean, I'm telling you, when there was an audible gasp in the room for my children.
Literally him chewing out that teacher on the phone.
And then her husband? Yeah, that was wild.
And then, like, the husband gets kicked out of the bar, and, oh, George is the best guy we know. It must have been Mr. Welch that was the problem. No, it was George. He needed to apologize.
You can tell you've always been a nice guy, because that's actually realistic.
Oh, I know that's realistic, but it's like, come on. That's not buddy up George right now. Like, he did nothing good.
Anything else that doesn't hold up?
You know what? I think that's enough bashing for today.
It's time for Which Character Would You Be? Which character would you be if you were a character in this movie? Who would you be?
I think probably the uncle. I am oblivious to some things. I make jokes. I know a few things, but also you might not want me to be at the lead at all times.
Yeah.
I would have said George, but like, I'm showing some humility this go round.
Yeah. Not me. I'm George. I am George Bailey. Now, I will say, I am George Bailey if I would have handled all my obstacles perfectly. I feel like for a lot of my life, I feel like George feels. Like if there's something bad that could happen or something wrong, something that can jump up in my way and block from where I want to be, it'll happen.
Yeah, and so long, nest egg of $2,000. We're giving that away.
Yeah, old me would not have done that. That is unlike me. Although I would be willing to give someone my last dollar. In that sort of guard, not $2,000. That's a lot of money, but I identify my past self, especially I identified with the George that's yelling at his loved ones because things aren't going well. And like
making children playing the piano cry.
I mean, I would hope that we could all see ourselves in that when things aren't going well and how that affects how we treat the people we care about. I started off not humble, but I'm working my way back towards humility. I obviously did not handle my obstacles the way George Bailey handled them, but I feel like George Bailey sometimes. In fact, when I was watching the movie, I was like, man, I get his feeling. I get why this beats him down in the end.
Yeah. So I do think some of the mental health stuff holds up. Some of it not so much, but I don't want to, again, bombast this movie.
Yeah. Deeper themes. Obviously, there's lots of deep themes here. Do you want me to start
I'll let you start off.
So I want to start off with this. This is from a critic of the time. His name is Bosley Crowther. He was a critic for the New York Times back in the 40s.
Oh, good old Boz.
He complimented some of the actors, including Stewart and Reed, but concluded this. The weakness of this picture, from this reviewer's point of view, is the sentimentality of it. Its illusory concept of life. And what I would say, no, Bosley, it's your cynicism that sees it as an illusion. Our cynicism, I actually think that's the best part of the movie. It only seems like an illusion to us because we're cynical. That's what's so great about Christmas is that layer of cynicism that we all have, it gets thinner and we have a better chance to realize what is actually true. What is actually right, that the only thing that matters are our relationships, the people we do life with. That is the important thing. And I think like that's Christmas is like when that layer of cynicism is the thinnest and it's not all about the American indoctrination of achievement. We must achieve, Cody. What do you think about that?
So I do think I agree somewhat with Bosley.
You're so cynical. Cody's here.
It is more of like, I know some people that I would say make me look like villainous scum, that they are saints and like they're constantly giving and doing good. The whole town gathering around him at the end and coming with money to cover the $8,000 that has been misplaced. I don't think, especially in modern times, I don't know if we would do that. I think we get glimpses of it during natural disasters. We get glimpses of it around Christmas.
But that is our version, though, right?
But it is much smaller, and it's not the whole town. It's like, oh, this is outliers.
Oh, do you remember blood drives after 9/11?
I do, but I'm still saying, like, I think even... Well, that's been 23 years ago. Like,
okay, yeah, I understand.
We've had Katrina since then, and that dipped.
If your argument is that we've changed, I'm not arguing against that. I'm with you.
That I do think that we get it, but it feels more like an outlier now versus like, at the end, everyone's going to do what's right. Even
I guess to flesh it out, what I want to say is, at the end of our lives, if you're blessed to have time to think at the end of your life, if you don't die in an accident or suddenly, you will be George Bailey at the end of this movie. Mm-hmm. You will understand what was important.
Yes.
If you are blessed with time and the ability to reason at the end of your life, you will be George Bailey.
Yes, I think the sentimentality helps the movie. So I will disagree with Boz on that part. But like if because the way I took Boz's writing is like it's not realistic.
Yeah.
And for that, I'm like, I hear you, Boz. Yeah. Cynical Cody sees you.
The other big thing I really enjoyed about this movie was the whole flash, the glimpse into the other alternate life, right? That all our choices matter and have impact on everyone around us. By showing George a world that took place without him, the film illustrates how even small, everyday acts of kindness and courage create ripples of change. Every choice we make creates ripples. And that theme resonates as a call to appreciate your intrinsic worth, that you have worth. Even if you're down on your luck, feel like you got no friends, but if you're leaving the house tomorrow, you're going to make choices. And those choices will have an impact on the people you're around.
So something that I think goes back with the communist thing is like, so some of the choices that he's faced with at different times, because he does his own free will, like it's for the betterment of others, but like if he had done the other thing, it wasn't like inherently evil. But it kind of feels like if he had done the other thing, it would have been inherently evil. And I'm like, oh no, like if you guys went on your honeymoon, like, and didn't notice the mob running towards the bank, okay. Or if you had gotten on that train instead of trying to help save your dad's business, yes, the town might look different, but you might be in a place where you could help more people. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's the wonderful thing about choices, though.
Yes.
Right? Normally, listen, we have way more choices throughout our day that aren't so clear-cut.
Yes.
As the ones they talk about and show in this movie. Most of our choices tomorrow during the day, when we wake up until the end of the day, will be more gray area than black and white. Mm-hmm. The black and white ones are easy. The right, wrong, the ones we'd all agree on, like, yeah, I will try not hit that person with my car. Simple choice.
Yes.
But yeah.
But yes, each of your actions do have a consequence, not only for yourself, but for others. And that's the difficult thing I think a lot of people struggle with, especially within faith dynamics, is the concept of how someone else's free will affect you. Like, just because you proclaim this thing or the other doesn't mean that your life is going to be easy or the sweet life. Other people, like 8 billion of us, all have free will, and it will affect you individually somehow. What Congress does, what your local mayor does, what your teachers do, what your friends say or do, it affects you. You are in control of how you respond, and you're in control of what actions you do, and make them actions that count.
The reason I love that as a pastor, the reason I like talking about this, is because there is a concerted effort, because of political issues, to make sure everybody thinks that all your choices are about you. They're about your life, and they don't affect anyone else. That is a lie. Now, I'm not even telling you. So even when I said that, there's some people who just are in that political frame of reference, and they think I'm talking about something. I don't care what choices you make. Just understand they have effect on people. It's not about you. It never was. That's a lie.
Yes.
So,
us.
Yeah. It's always about us. Me. It's about me. No. Cody, who's the winner of the movie?
I'm going to go James Stewart.
It's the easy pick, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. I mean, I thought for a long time about making that pick. Why are you making that pick?
Because
it almost doesn't even need to be explained.
It doesn't need to be explained, but I will say, like, this is a holiday classic. It gets played on repeat on, like, Turner Classic Movies or something.
Even though you could think of 6 better Jimmy Stewart movies, this is the one he gets remembered for.
This is the one that he primarily gets remembered for. And like you said, it's his first film post-service. Mm-hmm. And so without it, you're not getting the 2 big Hitchcock films I think Harvey comes out after it, but it might come out before.
Yeah.
I'd have to look that one up. But so you're missing some significant films in Jimmy Stewart's catalog if he doesn't do a quality job in this film, even though it gets mixed reviews and doesn't make back all its money initially. Now whatever studio produces it and has put it on DVD, they've made the money back.
Yeah. My pick is going to go directly against one of the messages of the movie, which is that chasing achievement isn't it, even though it's a very American thing. We're all about chasing achievement instead of, what really mattered, the relationships, all that. But I am going to say Frank Capra. Jimmy's the star, no doubt. But this is always introduced as Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life. And if you're going to chase achievement, at least tell a great story that your name becomes synonymous with. That to me would be the height. I don't care. I don't even know how much money he made over the course of his life. This is it. This is the legacy. Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life. They literally say his name when you introduce this movie. Yeah. He's the winner of the movie.
That's a solid pick.
Who's the loser of the movie?
It's a tie. Theologians and Clarence.
Yes. You really don't like Clarence.
Nope.
The loser of the movie for me is Freckleface Haynes. The guy, the original Alfalfa, because here he is in two of the major classic Christmas movies, and he's got a bit part in this one, although he does have a line. In White Christmas, he only shows up as a picture.
That's all you need.
And this dude dies at the age of 32 as a victim of a murder.
Ooh.
That involves a dog, possibly a bear. It's one of the weirdest stories I've ever read. I'm not going to get into it now because it would take forever. And it's super unclear as to, I'm like, what is going on here?
We need a pop culture pastor myths and legends episode where we talk about this potential murder.
Yeah.
And also, why was James Stewart obsessed with Bigfoot?
Yeah. How many lassos around the moon out of 10 are you giving this movie?
I'm going to be a bit of a Grinch. I'll go 7.
Yeah, I think overall, as just as cinema, it's like a 6.5, 7.5.
I mean,
6.5 to 7.5. As a Christmas movie, it's a 9.5. It's a classic Christmas movie. And we've already discussed, we've reviewed so many Christmas movies on this pod that you understand what we're talking about. You let some things go because it's a Christmas movie.
You do. That you do.
Well, Cody, I want you to always remember that no man is a failure who has friends. Thank you for being my friend.
Right back at you, big guy.
And Merry Christmas. Everybody listening, thank you for being our friends, and Merry Christmas to you. Tell us what you think about It's a Wonderful Life on the posts, the social media posts for this. And of course, do all that other stuff too. Subscribe to the pod, share the posts, things like that. We love you. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Pop Culture Pastor.